Howdy.
I love it when it says Dennis Diken has entered the room. Do you
How's
have an
everybody
announce-
doing?
do you have an announcement when you leave the room, like with Elvis?
Yeah, I say, "Ugh!"
We may have a dog come in and out, so we have an assigned band member to escort the dog out of the room in case
Mhm.
he or she becomes disruptive.
All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
I like dogs. I don't have any pets, but I always, like I say, I don't know if I have the patience to have my own pet, but I love visiting my friends' pets.
Aw.
Well, we've just kind of stumbled into our situation. I told my wife that let's go adopt a dog. I see a Pyrenees I like. And when I got there, I came home with two. So
Ah,
that's just how it goes sometimes.
cool.
Oh, I
Chester.
hear some rumbling now. So you're in charge of the dog duties today.
Yeah, I don't know what he's
Okay.
talking
Hey, Chester.
about.
Well, it's sort of an informal start, but this sort of the getting to know you before we get into some discussion. But to our viewers, this is Dennis Diken, drummer for the Smithereens. We're just thrilled to have him on Do the Secret Monkey today. Are you in
Thank
New
you.
Jersey today?
Yeah, I'm in a town called Wood Ridge. And for your information, there's a hyphen in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
We're
let's
gonna
see.
travel up to New Jersey in the
Yeah, we're
summer.
actually playing maybe twice or three times in New Jersey in August, or Montclair,
Oh,
Jersey City, and I guess it's WFMU at Jersey City.
it is, yes.
Yeah, we've been in talks with.
Oh, yeah, Evan Funk Davies.
That's right. I was trying to think of his nickname. I think that's what threw me. But yeah, he's been playing our music since 2022, and he was just very kind about getting us on the air. And we're up there touring with a band called, it's a garage band, which also is a family band as well, called Prof Fuzz 63.
Hmm.
It's interesting because the dad is sort of my age with a gray beard as well, and his wife and his kid is the drummer. So it's a similar dynamic, but they're terrific. They have sort of a B-52 sound, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, in Montclair, is that the church?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's someone has a, it's almost like a, I don't know if it's a back porch stage or something. I don't know
Hmm.
if that's it or not. Um,
Oh, that's something different, I think. Okay. I don't live very far from, actually, it's funny. I was in Montclair on Sunday at a party that Evan was at.
Oh wow.
wow.
So that's two of your bases covered already there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Evan Davies. Well,
Evan's a good friend of mine, and I'm actually a staff member at WFMU.
oh, that's
Oh my
great. Oh,
goodness.
my.
Yeah, I had a streaming show for about 2 years that started during lockdown called Denny's Den,
Yeah.
and it was on the Rock and Soul stream.
Okay.
But I've been doing fill-ins there since '96 or something like that. Yeah,
Now, has WFMU always been in New Jersey, or was it ever in New York?
it's always been in Jersey. As a matter of fact, it started out as the college station for Uppsala University or Uppsala College in East Orange, and that college closed down in the '90s, but the station continued right, I guess, considered on campus. Then they relocated to Jersey City in the late '90s, early 2000s. Yeah.
Okay. There was
Mhm.
another, there was a documentary I saw on a station on Long Island. I don't know if it was WLIR or some other station. Do you recall that? It was,
Yeah, I did. I think it was LIRR, and because there was a documentary about that station,
yeah.
so it's very possible. It was pretty good documentary, as I recall. A couple of years ago, I think I saw
Yeah.
it.
I need to go back and watch that. I was just looking at our calendar over here. Okay.
Porchista's home studio.
Porchista's home studio in Montclair.
Oh, that's the gig,
The date is August 16th. That's
but
our
that's the
last,
venue. That's the venue.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's our
don't know
last
it. Hmm.
there, and then we head back home. But then we're going down to Athens, Georgia, Charlotte, and then back to Carver, North Carolina, for the Cat's Cradle. So yeah, the August is pretty busy. Uh,
Good.
Now, I don't know if whether the timeline lines up, but I noticed on Facebook that you and Jim Babjack were you in Liverpool recently?
We were, yeah. Earlier in May, we headed out. Actually, my wife and I headed to London and stayed there for a couple days. Then Jimmy flew in to London, and we met up. And my wife stayed in London with a friend, while Jimmy, myself, and our high school friend Bob met up in Liverpool. I'd never been. Jimmy's never been. Our friend Bob had been, so he was our tour guide, and always wanted. Have you been? Any of
Yeah.
you?
Strangely enough, in our second year as a band, we just happened to get invited to play a few shows. Stourbridge, which is below Birmingham,
Mm.
um, Oswestry,
Hmm.
and Swarthmore, sort of in the Midlands. But we
Hmm.
did go to Liverpool. We went up to Liverpool, and I saw that you took some pictures at some of the places we went
Yeah, yeah.
home. You did
Hmm.
the Eleanor Rigby tombstone, which we missed.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So what'd you think? I would have assumed you had played there, maybe even the cavern, but that was your
No,
first.
never did. We had a great time. I think we covered all the places I wanted to go to. And if you do happen to go to the Eleanor Rigby grave, that's St. Peter's Church. Across the street is the hall for the church, and that inside that hall is the actual spot where John met Paul,
Oh my
Mm.
gosh.
July 57. And so if you go to that parish hall and it's locked, just knock on the door across the parking lot there, um, and get the groundskeeper, and he'll take you in there.
Oh
Oh
my gosh.
wow.
That's so
I
cool.
mean, that's the spot. They
Yeah.
played outdoors. The Quarrymen played outdoors that day. You no doubt seen the famous photos of them on the truck.
Mhm.
Um, and then later they moved inside to this hall, and that's where they met each other. And I don't know if you heard this, but there's an actual recording of the Quarrymen from inside that hall that
Wow.
surfaced
That day?
that night. Yeah,
Wow.
and it's on YouTube. You could find it.
Oh my gosh.
It's John. You can hear it's John. It's very crude and it's very echoey from across. It's recorded from across the hall, I guess. But they're doing a song called "Putting on the Ritz."
Oh wow.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that song. Yeah.
yeah. So check that out. What a artifact. And I believe there's more uh songs from that night, but that's the only one that's been leaked out.
Have you
But
seen that photo? I don't know if it's that day or another show, but Paul can be seen watching the band. Have you seen that?
I don't know.
He's wearing glasses because Paul did wear glasses occasionally.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you're looking at the picture, Paul's like in the bottom right corner, and it's clearly him, but he's just wearing glasses. Um, but looking very hip at 15 or 16, whatever he was.
Is that a newly discovered photo?
Yeah, I think in recent years. I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was tremendous. We stayed in sort of a really cool little hotel, kind of not that far from the downtown area, but just one of those, I don't know,
It was near the water.
19th century hotels.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was funny because I think the thing Ella remembers is she asked for a cup of coffee, and it was sort of like the cowboy version of coffee where you just pour the water on the grounds.
Yeah, and you said polite drinking, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I can do that.
Yeah, but we enjoyed Liverpool very much. Did you tour the houses and everything?
Yeah, we did. We did. We
Mm.
didn't see George's or Ringo's, unfortunately, but we did see Paul and John's.
Yeah.
George and Ringo's too.
Yeah, we went to Ringo's. I mean, you can't go inside, although it looks like they're refurbishing it, perhaps for a private owner. I don't know, but yeah, we went there. That still seems to be a little bit of a rough part of town, the Dingle, as it's called.
Yeah.
But I could have just parked out in front of that doorway all day and just
Yeah.
thought about the history and what went on in that neighborhood. And another unfortunate thing is, you might remember at the end of that street was the Empress Pub, which is made famous from the cover of Sentimental Journey, Ringo's first album. But it's no longer a pub. I think up until recently, it still was a pretty cool vintage British pub, but they turned it into some kind of fast food place. It's a little creepy,
Yeah.
but and George's house, we didn't have time during our stay. However, it's very close to the airport, so on our cab ride to the airport, we just had the cabbie do a
Yeah.
swing by, got out, took a couple pictures.
Oh,
So
that's so neat.
yeah,
We'd love to go back because there's so much we still didn't see. I mean, we did go to the cavern. I know there's a sort of a side bar at the cavern where it's a larger room, but we went down to the old, well, it's actually moved from where it originally was, but it still has the same feel, the
Yeah,
whole
they
under.
did.
I think it actually shares the same real estate as the original one.
Okay,
So
okay,
all those archways, I believe,
all right.
extend through at least a part of that block. I
Okay,
Mhm.
think it
okay.
used to be a fruit warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was reading, I can't remember if it was the tune in book or another place where it repeated about how smelly it was back in its heyday.
Yep. Sewage.
Yeah,
Sewage. Do you happen to know Kenny Howes, a
it rings a
musician?
bell. Rings a bell.
He's a musician from Atlanta. He's actually subbed on bass for us a few times. He's a really great songwriter and performer. Anyway, we were on Matthew Street there. Did you go to the Beatle Museum on Matthew Street?
No, we didn't.
It's if you go back, it's actually pretty good. It's a lot of Pete Best's artifacts in there.
Okay.
So we're coming out of that museum, and lo and behold, there's Kenny Howes across the street,
Oh.
a friend of ours. And another serendipitous thing was we were walking around the grounds of Strawberry Fields,
Yeah.
and which is a nice little hang,
Yeah.
and we passed this gentleman, friendly guy, looks at us, says hello, where you from? I said, we're from New Jersey. Oh, I was in New Jersey last year. He was at the Beatle Fest,
Yeah.
or Fest for Beatles fans, as they call it. Oh, it turned out it was Colin Hanton, the drummer of the Quarrymen.
Oh my God. Oh my God. He
And
was in Strawberry Field.
yeah, and he was with these three younger people. I think I'm not sure, but I believe he probably is for hire to do personal tours of
Gotcha.
Liverpool, because these three kids from Canada said, yeah, Colin's showing us around, and I imagine that's what it was. But talk about cool,
Oh my God.
yeah,
That's
and he,
about as far back as you could go in there.
yeah. Well, he
Yeah.
was the drummer that night
Yeah.
in July '57 when John met
So,
Paul.
was the bandstand open by the time you were there? I know that it was not ready when we were there. They were still working on all that stuff.
Well, it's there, but I don't know if there anything. I think there was a poster that I think something was scheduled,
Yeah.
but yeah, it looks like a drum, right? The
Yeah.
bandstand. It's like
That's
in
right.
the form of a
Yeah.
drum. But I enjoyed going there. I in my mind's eye, I pictured it to be much larger,
Yeah.
but we had lunch at the cafe there, which was nice. The two places I wanted to go to that we didn't get to hit were the location of Phillips Recording Studio, where they cut In Spite of All the Danger.
Hmm.
The building is still there,
Yeah.
and I wanted to go to the Blue Angel, but we didn't make it to that. But we pretty much hit everything else.
Yeah. We did see the grapes as we walked down Matthew Street. That was,
Yeah, we didn't go in there either because it was too loud.
yeah.
And like even the vocals that were coming, not even just a busker type guy playing acoustic, and the vocals were deafening on the street. There's no way we're going in there. Did you go to the Jacaranda?
No, no, unfortunately. We were only in Liverpool 2 days, right? Like
No,
maybe
no,
well,
like an
24
afternoon.
hours. We were there maybe 24 hours in Liverpool.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we didn't get, but by the time we slept and had to get the train back to, I guess, London or Swarthmore, we were actually was it Swarthmore?
Shrewsbury? Is that?
Shrewsbury. I'm sorry, Shrewsbury was sort of our home base for that trip. So we were there 8 days, and the only rain we got was just a little bit of a mist in Liverpool. So we had the most incredible weather. It was like late September,
It was very sunny.
2018. In fact,
Mm.
we happened to be in London on the same day, which would have been like the 49th anniversary of the British release of Abbey Road.
Yeah.
We just happened to time it just right.
Mm-hmm.
And the wall had been kind of cleaned up. The graffiti wasn't quite as bad then.
Mm.
Of course, we stuck one of our band stickers on the wall like
Oh,
everybody.
sure. You got to do that.
Yeah.
We lucked out with the weather too. We went so after Liverpool, we all met up. My wife flew in separately, and we all met up in Dublin too.
Okay.
So the whole time we were there, the weather, except for one day,
Yeah.
was beautiful. And that can really, no pun intended, put a damper on your vacation
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
if it's raining. But
Well, there were a couple of times where we had to like take practically everything we had with us to the next town because we were borrowing, amps and drums, but carrying guitar, your suitcase, it got a little, I
Hectic.
felt like we were trying to get through Manhattan with our gear or something, it
yeah,
had that feel to it. And we were basically on a really, really old train, which is fine by me because I'm a train buff,
mm,
but it felt like we were in a bus instead of a train from like maybe Liverpool back to um,
Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury. Yeah,
Yeah, there
mm.
people were standing in the train
yeah. It was
bathroom.
like a football Saturday or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we had so much stuff we had to carry.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. But it was a great time. We actually did make it to we did Abbey Road. We did go to Cavendish Avenue, and I lifted Lila up on my shoulders to get a picture of McCartney's house, and you know, just sort of the usual places. But oh, we went to Henley on Thames,
Mm.
and we got to stand at the gate of Friar Park. Obviously, we couldn't get in, but
What do you see from the gate?
you
Can
can
you?
see there's like I don't know what you call it. It's just like the gatehouse, but it actually is a home.
Mm,
Probably where one of George's brothers lived when he was alive, and they were helping take care of the grounds. And you
mm,
can see the driveway as it edges back. Of course, in my mind's eye, it kind of winds around and then opens out to the big open area where the mansion is.
mm-hmm,
But it was so cool because it had these stone walls leading up to it. As the stone wall curves, it goes down a street, which is funny. Our last name is Hart, and it's Hart Street. But
mm.
the little pub where George would go was walking distance from there, and I've seen pictures taken exactly where we took pictures
Mhm.
of George. Didn't you say there was the picture of that very shot in the ladies' room?
Maybe
I think
so.
Laura told me, said, yeah, I saw that photo of George in the ladies' room, and it was called the Row Barge Pub
Mm,
in Henley.
mm-hmm.
And while we were there, we went to St. Mary's Church and saw Dusty Springfield's grave.
Oh, cool.
Someone had texted, "You got to go." I said, "Oh my gosh, we haven't left yet. We got to see Dusty's grave."
Mm.
It was a wonderful trip. Well, I'm going to just completely spin things in a different direction, and I think the coolest thing about talking to you is that you're clearly a record nerd like we are. So we haven't even talked about the Smithereens yet, but I will. And there's all these connections and things. But you know, speaking of somebody else on Capitol Records, I I was just completely floored, about 35 years ago, that you were such a scholar on the Beach Boys.
Mm,
Oh my God. I think it was those liner notes for like the twofers, maybe when the CDs came out, two and
mm-hmm,
one. Like 2020 and Friends were on the same disc, that kind of thing.
mm.
But yeah, so how did you get involved in that? And come and tell us a little bit about your love of the Beach Boys all these years.
Wow. Well, it started in 1963. Some of you weren't born at the time, I think. And I was already still at that point, I was crazy about listening to the radio and buying records and started a couple of years prior to that for me. But I heard Surfing Safari, but Surfing USA actually shut down really blew my mind.
Mhm.
And went to the store. I'll never forget. I could even remember the lady behind the counter uh, asked for shutdown, and they had the 45s behind the counter, and she handed it to me. I said, "Wow, I got shut down." I turned it over. I didn't know Surfing USA was on the other side. It was
Oh,
one of those moments I'll never forget.
yeah.
Completely mind blowing moments, and even at that age, I was 7, I think. It was like the notion of being able to own the music you heard on the radio.
Yeah.
I could own this and play it over and over. Before that, before I first got my first records, I thought the bands were playing the music live at the radio station,
Yeah.
you know? Now, it occurred to me, one of my other favorite groups of all time is the Four Seasons. I remember hearing, I think, Walk Like a Man or Big Girls Don't Cry playing on two different stations at the same time, you know, when I was flipping the dials. So I said, oh, what's going on here? Then it's, you know, so the whole Beach Boys, I just, you know, they really spoke to me. And I just love them. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I just stuck with them, and you know, through thick and thin. You know, recently, about a month ago, we played Nashville, and I don't know if you know the name Fred Vale.
Fred Vale.
Yeah,
That rings a bell. Yeah.
if you listen to the 1964 concert album,
Yeah.
he's the first voice you hear. Now to entertain you tonight,
Yeah.
from Hawthorne, California,
Yeah.
with a gala concert and a recording session, the fabulous Beach Boys. He promoted shows for them in Sacramento and some other places, and became kind of their booking agent, I think, or helped them establish that early in their career their own booking agents
Right.
agency, which
Yeah.
was kind of unheard of for a young group like that to anyway. So through actually, I'm going to go in circles here. I met Fred on the phone because I'm co-producing a podcast, a series on a podcast, a deep dive into the Beach Boys. And the name of the series is "And Your Dreams Come True,"
Yeah.
and as opposed to "And Your Dream Comes True," which
Yeah.
is the title of the song on the Summer Days, Summer Nights. But it's a series on a podcast called Discograffiti, which you can find wherever you better podcasts are found. The host, Dave Gebrow, is a real astute musicologist, and his favorite band is the Beach Boys. And I mean, the interviews he's been doing, I'm just co-producing. I've been a guest on a few episodes, but I'm not doing the interviews, but I'm just helping him find people and make suggestions. Anyway, he's already talked to so many people. He did like a 3-hour interview with Marilyn and Ginger, you know, Marilyn Wilson and Ginger from the Honeys. And oh, gee whiz, his interview with Carney is not to be missed. David Marks, the incredible piece with him. On and on and on. Anyway, through David, I met Fred Vale on the phone, and when Smithereens played Nashville a couple of weeks ago, I invited him to the show, and he's been in thick with the Beach Boys for many years. It was a big thrill for me to make his acquaintance, and he actually gave me. He still has some ticket stubs from the December '63 show, which was one of the two shows that were recorded for that concert album. So I have this a great artifact. Anyway, I'm going off in tangents here, but it's just they've been an important part of my life. They've really enriched my spirit through the years, and you know, I'm sure it's the same for you folks. You know, it's.
When you were saying all that, you said that, 63. So it sounds like you're 5 years older than me, which is roughly. I've got some, friends that are roughly that same age, like Peter Holzapfel and Mitch Easter. They're sort of that age, and we've come to record with them and play on our stuff. And I guess where I was going is that was seeing Dennis play drums inspire you to get into drums yourself?
Before I ever saw a moving image of them, I'll tell you this story. I had started to teach myself to play drums when I was 2. You know, I picked up my Tinker Toys, and some folks may not know what Tinker Toys are. Do you know what Tinker Toys are? They're like a little wooden building toy, you know, set. So I took up those as sticks, and I started teaching, and also Lincoln logs.
Yeah.
Those are my drumsticks. And anyway, by the time 64 rolled around, I was already playing on coffee cans. All the neighbors were saving the plastic lids because I busted them all the time. And Shutdown Volume 2 album came out. This is early 64. Went to the A&P, the grocery store, which sold records. And I'm looking at the titles of the songs on Shutdown Volume 2. That's the album that had Fun, 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 Warmth of the Sun. Warmth of the Sun is maybe my favorite Beach Boys song. Don't Worry Baby, and a lot of other great cuts. And one of the songs really jumped out at me. I didn't know the names of the individual members at the time. But the song I'm talking about, it's the closer on the album. It's called Denny's Drums.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, construed as a filler track. I don't think of it that way. But anyway, when it dawned on me that the drummer in one of my favorite bands had the same name as I did, even before I saw him play, that was an electrifying moment for me. I'll never forget that, standing in that store and seeing that. And then, as time went on and I saw him play, mostly I'd say I didn't, back then, it's hard to believe now where you could pick up your phone, go to YouTube and dial in the Tammy Show or any number of performances. Back then, you were lucky to catch them on Hullabaloo or Ed Sullivan's show. And I dug it. The concert album I referred to before probably clued me into his playing because it's a live recording. And if you listen to that, that's a lot of the cuts on there have a real punk attitude to them, and I think it stems from Denny's playing.
Right.
So
they had to play a louder volume then too, just to be heard as well.
Who did?
The bands had to play louder, just to be heard because they weren't miking amps that much in those days. And,
right.
The drummer had to play louder. The guitar had to blast a little louder.
Yeah. And Denny really went for it. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the Surfin' USA album from 63, there's a track called Surf Jam. Mm-hmm. It's an instrumental, and I'll be darned if it ain't where the Ramones got their template from. Yeah. It's really ferocious. And that's the band playing on it. Go back and listen to that track. It's to me, that's one of the earliest examples I could cite of from whence punk came. And it's the freaking Beach Boys,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Lila and Ella I have some more things I certainly want to ask you, but Lila and Ella had a few. Lila's our drummer. Was been playing since she was 7.
Wow.
Now 10 years on, the band is, she's 17, and Ella's our bass player and started when we were, 13, 10 years later, almost 23. But I thought I'd just turn it over to them, and I think they have some things they'd like to ask you.
Well, before you do that, I must compliment you. I really dig your record, the most recent album.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really like it a lot.
Thank you.
You're going to be performing that in your August shows?
Yeah, we are. It's interesting that you mentioned that because we have a few things in common. First being Don Dixon producing us, and he produced maybe 3 of your albums, maybe, or 4.
I think so, yeah.
But we actually, the first album we were playing a little cleaner because that's just kind of where we were. But after playing live, we just kind of toughened up our sound a little bit. And then just in my mind, I think I maybe even mentioned, at least to Ella, that I think we kind of have a Smithereens sound going these days. We've actually covered, Behind the Wall of Sleep live whenever we play a longer show. And even though I didn't say it to Don, that's kind of the attitude we had going in. So we just feel like this album has a little more driving guitars and it's a little punchier. Thanks for saying that.
I really enjoyed it.
With you guys, if you ever need support, we would go practically anywhere. Play with you.
Thank you. We're looking for a juggler or a comedian these days to open the show,
we might could work that out.
well, let's talk.
How about plates? Spinning plates?
Well, yeah.
Do it.
I'm working on it. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, you mentioned you started playing drums when you were 2, or just kind of like messing around with the Tinker Toys and Lincoln Logs. Were there any other instruments you kind of gravitated towards, or has it just always been drums?
It's pretty much always been drums. I tried to learn guitar in the 80s and I just didn't stay with it. I wish I had. I wish I had taken piano lessons or messed with piano when I was younger. I do write on piano, but I have no idea what the chords I'm playing are. I'll just go for it until I find a chord formation that I like. And it's very painstaking, but I do use the keyboard to write. But I know, unfortunately, but I guess I still can. So I still can learn. But the answer is pretty much it was drums. Yeah.
Mhm.
So drums have stuck with you since you were 2. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, when did you get your first like drum kit?
Yeah. So as I said before, I started out with coffee cans with plastic lids, and I had alongside that on the table, I think it was a can of marbles to create a little snare buzz feel. But I didn't get my first drums till 1968 when I was 11. And by that time, I already had a bit of coordination and at least the direction in my mind where I could sit down and actually play, even though it was just on coffee cans prior to that. So it was 68. It was a used kit, red sparkle. I still have them. Half Ludwig and half WFL brand. And well, WFL was kind of an offshoot of Ludwig, so they match up pretty good. But yeah, 68. That was a great time. I had a lot of good records to play along. I'm self-taught, so I just learned from playing along with records. Yeah.
Lila, we were doing research on having this podcast chat with you, but I don't know if Lila had planned to ask anything about it, but she's a big fan of the Four Seasons
Ah,
as well. I think it might have been the Jersey Boys film
Yeah.
that kind of got her in. But
mhm.
whenever we're in the car, Four Seasons, when Lila's choosing the music, tends to be one of the things we listen to.
Mhm.
Well, that's great to hear. I think I cite the early Four Seasons records as uh, some of the music that I think got me really hyper excited about drumming, because the drum tracks are very innovative, I think, on their records and very extroverted, the feel and the ideas.
Yeah.
It's drumming and playing has always been about feel and imagination. That's what I count the most with anything that musically that speaks to me. It's chops and technique are to me only the. I mean, I completely am in awe of some of the great technicians, but to me, that's just something you use to execute what's in your mind and your heart. But the I could talk for hours about the Four Seasons.
Wow.
The main drummer on the bulk of their big hits, I guess maybe starting with Dawn Go Away, maybe a little earlier, was a guy called Buddy Saltzman, who was a New York studio player, played on a lot of different hit records for a lot of people. But, we're working with John Cowsill is singing with us, and he's a dear friend of mine. And some years ago, I was at lunch with him, and we got talking about Buddy Saltzman, the drummer. He said he played on our records. He played on the Cowsills records. And I said, wow, that's so cool. I'm such a big fan. And John had great memories of sitting behind him in the studio when they were recording. And at that time, I was writing liner notes for Four Seasons Rhino box set. And I had interviewed Charlie Colello, who was their arranger, genius arranger. He's still around. And I asked him, I said to him, I think I heard, did Buddy Saltzman pass away? And he says, no, he's down here in Boca. I saw him recently. I said, do you have a phone number? He gave me his number. And I was reluctant to call it because thought he had passed. I didn't want to, but anyway, so when I mentioned it to John that I had a number on Buddy, he said, "Give me that number," and he called him. And that night, John called me in tears. "I spoke with Buddy. He's alive."
Wow.
And so he and I met up in Florida and spent time with Buddy, and it was a great thrill to meet him and become his friend. And that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you mentioned John, because I had originally planned to ask you what was the connection with John now singing with the Smithereens on occasion.
Mm.
But they didn't he and Susan and maybe how many of the Smithereens actually sang on some Smithereen tracks through the years?
Oh, the Castles. I think there was 5 of them. Jimmy and I were in LA with the band recording the Blow Up album. I think we were still in the rehearsal stages, maybe, or maybe doing tracking. And we saw an ad for a show. It was the Screaming Trees, Red Cross, and the Cowsills were playing in Hollywood. So we went, and we were knocked out by the Cowsills in that genetic vocal blend they had. At the time, I think they were promoting the Global album.
Oh yeah,
Very good record.
sure is.
And so we approached them after the show, and we had in mind Jimmy's song Now and Then. We thought it would be great to have them singing on that one. So that's how we made their acquaintance.
Yeah.
And we saw them here and there through the years, but I got to know John really well because he was playing drums with the Beach Boys
Yeah. Yeah.
for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, something.
See, I was thinking that might have been the connection.
Yeah.
I mean, actually have overlapping connections with him.
Yeah. So that's how we became closer. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Cowsill fanatic, and I think they're not far behind me. I mean, I saw them on the 1968 NBC special.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was just like, oh my God, these are kids and they're making music. I didn't know that was possible. And I think John and Barry were the ones who really just like, oh my, I don't, I'm not believing this.
Yeah.
And it's chances are I probably saw them on Ed Sullivan the year before.
Hmm.
I remember John just went nuts on the drums during.
Oh, they do a Four Tops tune.
Yeah.
Is it Reach Out, I'll Be There? Maybe.
I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing, and he's like a year older than me, or we're very close in age. So as a kid, it was like, oh, maybe I can do this, you know.
We of course we didn't realize how hard it was, but you know, likely with you and John, it just came naturally. But yeah, it was, you know, and of course Susan's about a year and a half older than me, but she looked so tiny. I felt like, you know, she's probably younger than me. But as time went on, to see how they matured as a band, and then, you know, they came back in, you know, 90 or so with Global, and then kind of went away for a while. And then, you know, we kind of got in touch with them just through Facebook.
Mm.
And Susan, you know, has some mutual friends because she was married to our friend Peter for
Hmm.
several years. And just over time, we ended up being invited to be on their podcast. And then we had them on our podcast. And just last week or early this week, Bob Cowsill sent a 3-minute video review of our album, and we just could not be more blown away. And there's
That's great.
people. And I've always, you know, admired the music Bill made after the Cowsills, and, you know, how he turned Indian Lake into a really beautiful song.
Hmm.
You know, I always thought that sounded like Paul Revere and the Raiders when I was a kid. And
I could see that.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that it was the Cowsills until later, but we saw them on the Happy Together tour right before COVID, and it just warmed my heart like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another point I was going to make about them. Maybe it'll come back to me. Yeah. Oh no, I know what I was going to say. I played with Peter last year, with Peter also in New York. It was only a couple songs, but
was it an REM thing?
No, it was. I think it was the Trouser Press 50th anniversary bash.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was that show. Pretty sure it was. He and Chris came up. I put a little combo together to play that event, And I think it was that show. I'm pretty sure it was that show that
Yeah.
that he and Chris also did a mini sets,
Yeah.
and someone else too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, then it's great to play with Peter. It's cool dude, you know.
We try to keep up with them, just as what they're doing. Of course, they both, live within about 5 miles of us. Chris lives Chapel Hill, Peter's on the other side of Durham. So, and I played with Chris and his band. We had a duo, he and I, then we had a trio, and then we had a full band 30 years ago. And then he sort of went into seclusion to be a producer.
Mm-hmm.
Or he was doing way more producing than albums for, I guess, the rest of the 90s. But it was an education for me, and it was like I was learning from somebody. He was a master at just presentation and recording. And then to get to know Peter, because Peter played in their dad was in Peter's band, which was a children's band.
It wasn't Peter.
It wasn't Peter's band.
Well, it was Peter was the bass player. Their dad, their birth dad was the drummer, and so they knew Peter as well as I did, probably, if not more, when they were just little kids. But so we were, just keeping the music alive. But I know Ella's got a few things she'd like to.
Sure.
So in my research about you, I saw that you worked with one of my heroes, Dave Davies. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, again, when I was a kid, but You Really Got Me when it came out in '64, and just was crazy about the Kinks all my life. And the Smithereens were all huge Kinks fans. They informed our musical spirit incredibly. In 1991, November 91, we were on the road. That was the Blow Up album. And we were scheduled to play a benefit in Boston at Boston Gardens in conjunction with WBCN. And I forget what the charity was, but there was a bunch of different bands on the bill, including Ray and Dave, I guess you would say unplugged, just doing a two-man thing, promoting the Phobia album at the time. And we got wind of it, and we offered our services. Said, well, if you want a band to play with you, we sure would like to do that. So it ended up we played. There was a curtain with backline set up behind the curtain, and they were in front of the curtain. And we did a sound check rehearsal where we established that when they get to the end of Lola and they do the sing-along bit with the audience, the curtain would rise and we would kick into the end of Lola and then play You Really Got Me with them. So we made their acquaintance there. And mind you, that was after having stalked them at their hotels in New York in the 70s, when we would go see them every time they played. And one quick aside, I remember one time Mike Mazaris and I were at the Warwick Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and we would just wait for them to come back from their sound check. And one time Ray walks in and, hey, Ray, can we buy you a drink? And it's 4 in the afternoon, something like 5 in the afternoon. He says, well, I'll tell you what, I got to go to my room and drop something off. I'll be down in a few minutes. And we're thinking, yeah, really? He did, true to his word. He came down and we're what, 18 at the time, 19 or something like that. And had a Heineken with us at the bar and chatted for about 15 minutes. Couldn't believe it. Anyway, so we did this thing at Boston Gardens, and we stayed in touch with Dave more than Ray when we were hoping to do a tour with him, which didn't materialize, but he did sit in with us in '94 at the House of Blues in LA. So we had a little rapport, and then flash forward to 2013, I think it was 2012. Dave is going with a woman in New Jersey who lived around the corner from a dear friend of mine. And my friend was talking with him, and my name came up. At the time, Dave was looking to do some shows. He said, oh, yeah, I remember playing with Dennis. I'd like to talk to him. And that's how it came about. And I think I did 4 runs with him, which were so much fun. I describe him at this point as he still has the heart and soul of a punk, but the wisdom of an old sage, which is a great combination. He's a sweet man, and had a lot of fun. I saw him recently. Yeah, he's doing good.
Does he still have the high voice when he sings lead?
Oh yeah.
That's what blew me away when I saw him live. It was about 26 years ago at the Cat's Cradle in Carborough, and it's almost like he was singing his own parts, and I guess the other people were maybe taking the Dave parts. But I just
Yeah.
thought, this is amazing. I mean, it's like it took me a while to, oh, I see what he's doing.
Yeah.
And of course, even if he did sing it in his own range, his range was amazing.
Yeah.
Mentioned his guitar playing, and I actually got to open that show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they used to call me a lot at Cat's Cradle to do like solo openers. I opened for Dave's band, and I would play like when Roger McGuinn came to town, that kind of thing. But so and that I think that was right around the time his book came out. Is
Okay.
well, the first, I think he's written two now, but the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah, just what a great soul. Look, I know we've gone off on these sort of rock fan tangents, but I did want.
Well, let me add one thing to what you just said. We did a few songs in the set where I got to sing harmony doing his original parts.
Oh,
Like Young and Innocent Days.
yeah.
I was singing the high part on that. And Strangers also.
Yeah.
I was singing what would have been his harmony part with himself on that tune. So that was a thrill to be able to sing those bits,
I've seen that. Isn't there a video of that performance, him singing?
Probably on YouTube, yeah.
Was it the Trouser Press? Was that that?
Dave wasn't there for that, no.
Okay, well, I did see Dave where he kind of seemed like he was out front or something singing that. I even heard someone else play it recently, and it just blew my mind. I can't remember who did it, but it was at a live show, and it's like, wow, what a great choice of a song to play.
Yeah. Are you talking about Strangers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
Well, so tell me how you guys got together. Did you actually have a band before the Smithereens, like in different combinations, or did it just all come together at once?
Well, I was in one band prior to the Smithereens. See, in New Jersey, there's a town called Carteret, where Jimmy, Mike, and myself grew up. I shouldn't say myself, where I grew up. Myself grew up in Carteret. I grew up. We had, I know some municipalities have junior high school, but we just went to 8th grade and then freshman year. So the year 1971, between 8th grade and freshman year, I was playing in the basement along with records, and somebody knocks on the back door, and it was our paper boy who delivered our newspapers, and he said, "We have a band. We're looking for a drummer." And I said, "Okay, let's see." Well, sure. I was looking to be in a band, so that was my first band. It wasn't very good, that band, but it was a good learning experience, and it fizzled out for me in short order. But as I was leaving grammar school, 8th grade, hoping to find musicians that were on the same page as I was, I thought, okay, I'm going into high school. There's going to be a lot more kids I've never met before. Maybe I could find a guitarist who could play "I Can't Explain" by The Who. That would be a great starting point, right? I've told the story 10 million times, but it's such a good story. It was day one of freshman year. Day one, period one, row one, seat one. There's this kid with kind of a Beatley haircut, which stood out to me. And I thought, this kid looks like he might be hip. And he opens his loose sleeve, and he's got color pictures of The Who from Hit Paraders plastered inside his loose leaf binder. I said, I'm going to talk to this guy. So I did at the end of the earth science class, and that was Jimmy Babjack. And we started playing together that week.
Yeah.
So that was 1971. We were 14. And Mike Mazaris, I knew since 3rd grade. I went to grammar school with Mike.
Yeah.
And Jimmy knew him. See, Jimmy went to a different grammar school. He lived across where the dividing line was for the school district, but he knew Mike as a kid also because they went to the same church. So he already knew Mike. And Mike at that time wasn't playing. He played accordion. He took accordion lessons, but Mike was a very intuitive musician. And when he saw Jimmy and I were hanging out a lot, just playing in his garage, he thought, well, maybe I should join them. And he learned to play bass, and he just became a world-class bassist in like overnight, really. So that was us kicking around for the better part of the 70s in search of a fourth member. That because we were doing the Who, we were doing the Kinks, Beatles, Small Faces. We were playing all these different kind of. And the currency in New Jersey clubs at that time was Marshall Tucker and Hall and Oates and Top 40 and Southern Rock, and nothing wrong with that, but that's not what we were into. We were real Anglophiles, and we had a certain vision in our head. So we poked around, but it was really tough going. And I even though we kept our eyes on our prize, which was to play together and find another member, I was still playing in different bands. Matter of fact, Mike and I played together in 1979 in a New York-based band called Mark Mazur and the Targets. It was an original situation. We got to play a bunch of different venues in Manhattan, which was also good experience for us prior to the Smithereens. It paved the way for us to play certain venues in New York. So anyway, 1978, late 78, I think it was, Pat put an ad in the local musicians classified in the Aquarian, and I was running ads seeking a lead singer too, but Pat's ad was for a drummer to play in a cover band. And this ad caught my eye because, again, it wasn't Marshall Tucker, it wasn't Top 40. The band's repertoire consisted of Beatles, Buddy Holly, Devo, Elvis Costello. I said, well, this might be interesting. So I called and auditioned and joined that cover band. We rehearsed for 6 months, played one gig, and that was that. But I stayed in touch with Pat, and he was writing songs, and he called me to play on the demos. And long story short, I brought in Jimmy, brought in Mike, and that was early 1980.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Now, has Mike always been that athletic on stage? I know I saw in that, I guess maybe Behind the Wall of Sleep video, he's just doing these crazy kicks. Was that like a Pete Townsend thing or what? What was that?
Well, at that time, he was really into running, and I think he just liked jumping around.
Yeah.
Well, it was very I certainly wouldn't do that, but he was very agile.
Yeah, I think you told me to do that, and I was like,
Yeah.
Do you want me to play the bass well, or
they've got good stage presence, but I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Pat has since departed. I guess there was a while where he was playing in Las Vegas, had a show.
That's right.
Sort of a storyteller kind of show about his book. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was called Confessions of a Rock Star.
Yeah.
Which I never got to see. Yeah. But yeah, he did have a residency at the Riviera for a while. Yeah.
Well, a friend of ours, and we kind of know him through music, but he's also just a big baseball fan. We love the Baltimore Orioles. That's the team I grew up with. And Nate Stoffa played drums with him in that show. Of course, Nate is always popping up in different places, but I was just like, you're kidding me. He's playing with Pat from the Smithereens.
Oh.
So I haven't actually had a chance to talk with him much about that because he moved away for a while. But you remember him. We did a radio show and he came to just watch us as we performed on the radio one time. But a very sweet guy. Same influence as me, probably same influences of you too. So I think that's probably why he fit in so well with Pat, the drummer. Reason. But
was he the guy that was playing with Leonard Cohen?
Maybe. He's really tall and thin.
I think so, yeah.
It kind of reminds me, it's almost like he and Renee Coleman could be like twins.
You
know him from the Iguanas, played with Alex Chilton. But well, this has been a thrill, and I have to thank Wendy Renford Jones for connecting us. She's been PR for us the last several months. And so you're tell us about your latest album, Reissue. and we'll put a link to it.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. We've put out 2011, which came out in the year 2011, and the title and the graphics on the album are kind of a play on our 11 album. And it was the last studio album we did with Pat. Although we do have some tracks in the can with Pat's vocals that are pretty exciting, and we're planning to put that out at some point, in addition to a completely new studio album. But 2011 was recorded at the tracks were done at Mitch Easter's Fidelatorium.
Yeah,
and Dixon produced that, and we took those tracks to New Jersey and did the overdubs at Pat's house. Dixon had his magic digital box, and we did vocals and guitars and all the other schmutz at Pat's house. And I think the album holds up well. People really dig it, and so we put it out on vinyl for the first time.
Good.
And CD.
Is it Sunset Boulevard Records?
Beg pardon?
Is it Sunset Boulevard Records?
Yes, it's actually it's on the Tolly label, and in conjunction with Sunset Boulevard. Yeah.
Okay. Good. I guess I was going to close with this, but I think maybe I want to just come back slightly. So you said you recorded at the Fidelatorium, which is Mitch Easter's studio, and Don Dixon producing. That's where we made our first record. And the fact that these kids were still teens working with Mitch and Don, I don't know how cool they realize that is. Because when I was, 13 and 18, I would have done flips off the top of the house if I was told that I could record with those guys. But how did you connect with Don to begin with?
Well, I'll answer that by saying a parallel to your thrill of working at that studio. We were thrilled because in the 80s, we got to work at the record plant in New York City. That was our home base, starting with our Beauty and Sadness EP, which, if you don't know about the record plant, or if some of your viewers don't know, John Lennon worked there a lot. Gee whiz, Springsteen did The River there. Bands like Mountain and the Raspberries, on and on and on. It was one of the premier studios in Manhattan. We felt so lucky to be able to be plugged in there. Anyway, we got signed to Enigma Records in 1985 after kicking around for nearly 6 years, not without a record deal. And it was their suggestion, I believe, to have Dixon produce us. I really was not aware of him at the time. And so we didn't even rehearse. But here's the thing, too. 5 of the tracks, especially for you, were recorded before we knew Dixon or before we were signed. It was April of 85. We went to the record plant because Pat had these songs we wanted to record. And we did 5 tracks that night. Alone at Midnight, Crazy Mixed Up Kids, Cigarette, Behind the Wall of Sleep, and Blood and Roses, without a producer. Dixon later helped us do overdubs and sweeten those, but those were the tracks that ended up on Especially for You. And also, we shopped that batch of tunes to every imaginable independent and major label, and everybody turned us down. But they're the actual bones of half of Especially for You. So it's just funny how that happened, but it was Enigma we have to thank for putting us in touch with Dixon. And I remember no rehearsal. We went in day after Christmas of 85, met Dixon in the lobby of the record plant. And I said, no pre-production at all, and I just said, one thing I want to ask you, please don't make my snare sound like a dead fish. Because at the time there was that 80s sound. I just don't want that. And he said, no worries. And we got off to a good start. And we really had a lot of fun working with him. He's so organic in his approach to making records. So, yeah.
It's like working with a friend. And that's how, like a family friend, which kind of he was before we, it's like, do we dare ask him to produce us? Because we know who he is, but he's someone who dotes on them. But I think Laura, my wife, gave me the courage to ask him, and sure enough, he said yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Well, that's great. And please do me a favor. I'm not sure if I'll be around, but when you hit New Jersey in August, give me a blast.
I will. I'll
Yeah.
it's going to be our first trip. We've been to Philly, but never north of there. So that would be our first time up there. And we're, I just know how special it was to be up that way back in, 30, 35 years ago, my first trip to New York and New Jersey. And I want them to have the same cool experience that I
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Well, Dennis, this has been a pleasure. And just from the bottom of our heart, this means a lot to have you on the show.
Thank you. It means a lot to me too. I love what you folks are doing, and I wish you a lot of luck. And I really do hope to see you if I can.
Well,
and
we will totally make sure that you get word.
okay. Thank you. All the best to you.
You too.
You too.
Okay.